Let's pick up on this conversation now. President Cyril Ramaphosa and Police Minister Bheki Cele have vowed to equip police officers to adequately deal with the country's ever-rising violent crime. Addressing the Police and Prisons Civil Rights Unions Congress, which is taking place in Durban, Cele reiterating that his calls for the police to protect themselves against criminals still stands. Cele's statement coming amid concerns by the police watchdog IPID about what it says is the death of suspected criminals at the hands of the police. In the past month alone, 20 suspected criminals were killed in a shootout with police. POPCRU spokesperson is Richard Mamabolo. He joins us now from Durban on day 3 of this conference. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for your time. Let's pick up on what the President had to say when he addressed your Congress yesterday, promising to equip police officers. What exactly does he mean by that in practical terms?
Thank you, Xoli, and good morning to your viewers. We think that is quite important, the commitment that the President made, because I think, we have known that there has been a staff decline in the SAPS, and of course, another challenge is related to the uneven allocation of resources, wherein you find that most police stations in rural areas and townships do not have sufficient resources, such as vehicles, and the staff complement as compared to those within affluent areas. So those are some of the things that we feel definitely need the attention of government to address. But again, however, you remember that in his maiden State of the Nation address in 2019, the President had committed that we need to have violent crimes by half within the next decade. And immediately after that, you had the then Minister of Finance cutting down on the budget. So that has obviously had a negative impact. And of course, currently, as a measure to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, government has been installing austerity measures. We think that that will also have a negative impact on the manner in which police can be resourced to fight crime. So, but we will obviously hold on to that commitment, and hopefully out of this we can make some progressive stance towards ensuring that police are fully resourced.
Yeah, so you've spoken about two elements I want to pick up on, and that is the uneven resources or the uneven resource allocation to police stations that may be in the urban areas versus those that are in rural parts, but also austerity measures. So what exactly did the President pledge at your conference? Is it going to give you money, but also importantly, are we going to see the head count of police officers increase? I seem to be aware that there is a recruitment process on the go.
Yeah, indeed, there is a recruitment process. I think one of the key things that the President spoke about was the danger allowance that police are getting. Remember that it had been at 400 for quite a long time. It was only increased last year to 700. And of course, as a union, we had wanted it to be standing at 1,500 by now. But government had indicated that they were at the end of their financial budget, and discussions are ongoing to ensure that it is increased. One other thing, of course, is the issue of housing allowance, because you know that the majority of our members who are public servants, police, men and women, do not qualify for, they do not qualify for RDP houses, and yet they cannot afford bonded houses. So most of our members are living in Squalor. So he did make promise to address those issues, which we will obviously be further looking into. And of course, I think one of the other matters that we had raised since our policing endeavor that we held in August this year was the issue around police killings, because it has been a quite huge concern. We've lost over 69 police officers though so far since the beginning of the year. And one of the calls that we have been making, directly with the Minister of Police, is that there needs to be legislative changes which would ensure that the killing of police is considered to be treasonous. And we think through that there will definitely be harsher sentences that will ensure that we prevent any further police killings. These are obviously short-term goals, but one of the aims that we really want to achieve as a union is to ensure that we establish good working relations with communities, because at the end of the day, even if we are to increase the boots on the ground, without the necessary relationship that we have between police and communities, we're not going to get rid of crime. We're not going to ensure that South Africa becomes a safer place. Again, with the issue of recruitment, yes, indeed, the SAPS has been on a recruitment path. Just last year, after COVID, they recruited about 10,000 new police officers. But again, you still have a challenge in that regard, because as much as they had recruited 10,000, you had about 6,000 police officers leaving the service, some of them due to attrition, due to early retirements, and various other reasons. So in the real sense, that it means that in the past year, there were only 4,000 police officers who were recruited into the service. This year, again, there are recruitments that are taking place, and I think the number has increased to 30,000. We will welcome that, but again, at the end of the day, it would not matter how many police officers are being recruited. We need to obviously have some form of different approaches towards the crime issue, and not only rely on having more police officers. And it's quite important that communities also play a role.
Yeah. Mr. Mamabolo, hopefully this particular question, I'm hoping you can answer it as briefly as you possibly can because of time. You mentioned police killings. I mentioned at the start of our conversation that IPID says it's concerned by what it sees as suspected criminals dying at the hands of police officers. It's a delicate balance, because this is where the police minister comes in to say the police must protect themselves. What are the rules from within the police force? I'm talking an ordinary police officer on the ground when they are faced with a life-threatening situation. How do they act? What is the training?
Yeah, look, I think part of the challenges with regards to that has been, the Criminal Procedure Act. There is an act which speaks to how a police officer should react when their lives are faced with danger. And of course, we think that it should also be reviewed, because it is not clear around what policemen and women should do. But what we have seen is that police officers are getting killed on a regular basis. And I think IPID is really being unreasonable. They are being insensitive. I mean, there have been a lot of police officers who have been killed in the past, and IPID expects them to sit back and wait for criminals to kill them. That's basically what they are saying. Because in instances where police officers have reacted, or rather have ended up killing this suspect, it would be under circumstances where their lives are at risk. You know, they would be fighting back against them being attacked. And it's quite unreasonable for IPID to suggest that police officers should just continue to sit back when their lives are being taken like this. So police officers need to act decisively whenever they are confronted with any life-threatening situations. And I think, I don't know what would have prompted IPID to even suggest that police officers should obviously be lenient when it comes to them being killed. Why can't they speak about the fact that police officers are being killed on a daily basis?
As I said, it is quite a sensitive area of this discussion, and perhaps it leads to another important question, because earlier you pointed to austerity measures that government is implementing at the moment, and that means that there is going to be a squeeze on your budget. But that also, though, talks to what the bill is against the police department by people who are suing the police for either wrongful arrest or indeed people who have been killed and the loved ones are now suing the department. Do you have any knowledge at this stage what that bill is against the police?
Well, the last I checked, it's in millions of rands. It's quite a huge amount that has been reflected. I just can't remember the exact figure, but the minister had spoken about it. And of course, it's quite worrying. We think that one of the discussions, of course, we'll be having is to look into how we professionalize the SAPS even further, to ensure that whenever arrests and all these other activities that they conduct are effected, are done in a legal manner, which would not result in the SAPS having to be charged and of course sued in the regard that has been happening.
All right, Richard Mamabolo speaking for the South African, in fact, the Police, Prisons and Civil Rights Union, POPCRU for short. Thank you very much, and we hopefully will speak to you again at the conclusion of your elective conference that is on the go in Durban. It's a 5-day Congress elective conference, and so a new leadership of POPCRU will likely be announced at the weekend, possibly.